right, so we've got this nice pretty button that says Google Sign In, and when you click it, nothing happens. Let's go ahead and fix that. The way that we're going to tackle authentication this time, though, is going to be through the use of a service. So we haven't used services in this class, which is kind of crazy, but a service is a class that can be used by many different components, and so they can kind of like share tasks inside of that service. So you can imagine that it's a pretty common, pretty useful thing. We just kind of, for the sake of this course, show you one thing at a time. We just haven't used them yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to see what our path is. And so right now I'm in the quick chat folder. So I'm going to cd into the source folder, the app folder, and then in here I'm going to make a new directory. So on my Mac it's mkdir, and I'm going to say services. So I'm just making a directory, and then I'm going into that directory. The only reason I'm doing this is because I just want my services to be organized into a folder called services. I could have just as easily made that folder from over here. It would not have mattered, right? There it is right there, services. There's nothing in it. So let's go ahead and do an ngg. Instead of a component, this time we're going to do an ngg service auth. Since I'm inside the services folder, it's going to make that service file inside of this folder, right? So it made it inside of source app services, and it made auth.service.ts. It also gave you this warning that says the service is generated but not provided. It must be provided to be used. So that's an easy thing to fix. So we go over into our app module, and we go into our providers, and we say, hey, I want to use the auth service. I'll put my little trailing comma on there as well, and it should auto import it just fine. The reason they didn't type that for you, so components they typed it for you, which is interesting, and here they didn't provide it for you, is that there's a lot of different ways that you can organize like ng modules, like to be, and if you have a giant app, you can make like a bunch of different modules. We're doing a pretty simple app here, so there's only one module. So for us, it would have been nice if they'd auto-type this. They didn't, but you know what? It's pretty easy to type ourselves. All right, so now we've got this auth service. You can see that it doesn't really type much code for you. It just says add injectable class auth service. What's nice about a service, and the fact that we've put it into providers here, is anybody that wants to use it can. So let's go ahead and show that part first. So over in TypeScript, what we can do is we can now use it with dependency injection. So if I wanted to get access to this, I could say public auth service, give me the auth service. And you have to import it, of course. But what that does, which is really nice, is there's kind of like a global singleton that anybody can have access to. So the system, like underneath the hood, makes an instance of this class, and it provides it to anybody that wants it using dependency injection, which is really slick, and it's done so in a way that you can use testing with your app, and the whole thing just worked out really nice. And it's the right way to do like don't repeat yourself concepts. So services, crazy, we haven't used them before, but now we have. All right, so inside this service, let's implement a little of this guy. So he's going to use dependency injection as well, and he's going to get the Angular Fire auth object. So it's coming from Angular Fire auth, which we can import. And he's going to do things like we've done before with authentication. So one of the things he's going to do is he's going to say this.afauth.authState.subscribe. The thing he's subscribing to is going to need a fat arrow function. So I'm going to type a fat arrow function because we've got one of those. The auth state object, if your memory is just extremely good from Password Keeper, it passes you an auth state object. You can call it auth state or you can call it user. And it is a Firebase.user object. It'll say Firebase. What is this Firebase you speak of? You need an import for it. It doesn't auto import very good, but we've got a snippet that we've made for it. So import Firebase from Firebase/app. Cool. And if you recall, the way you know if you're signed in or not is you just see if you've got a user or not. And so if you've got a user object, then you're in good shape, you're signed in. So we'll just do a console log here. what am I doing? CLG. So user is signed in as, and I'll tell you what, we'll list their user object just like in the entirety. And then here we'll say user is not signed in. And you don't have to have this subscription, but it is a pretty common one, and we will just go ahead and make it here. Another thing I'll say is anytime you say the word subscribe, you probably ought to say the word unsubscribe somewhere. This one, though, is another one you can cheat on. Services don't die, right? So services, you make the one service, it lives for your entire app, and so it never dies. And since it never dies, it's okay to not unsubscribe. It's funny, I give you this rule that you should always unsubscribe, and then I come up with all these special cases where you don't have to worry about it. This is another one of the special cases. So let's go ahead and add some functions that people can call. So they'll probably want a function that says sign in with Google. That seems like something they're going to want. And this function, I'm just going to make it self-contained. So I'm just going to make it a void return. Some people like to return a promise for when sign in is complete. I prefer to keep it self-contained. It just keeps life a little simpler, right? So the way we do sign in is we say this.afauth.auth sign in with, and you get to sign in how you want to sign in. You can do custom token, which is what we've done before, email password, which is pretty easy to do, sign in with phone number. That's one of Firebase's new thing. What we're going to use is we're going to choose between pop-up or redirect, and the one I'm going to choose in this app is pop-up. If you prefer the redirect style, that is okay by me as well. Sign in with pop-up, it wants to know what type of authentication that you're going to be doing. In order to do authentication, we're going to have to make sure that Firebase is set up for it. So one of the things that you should have done in the first app is you should have made yourself a project. So mine is called Quick Chat with some numbers. Here should probably be your username and then -quick chat. But what we need to do in here is the database can have rules if you want. I've currently got mine set to just true. Totally flexible what you do with your rules. We've talked about rules plenty in the class. What we want to do here, though, is we want to add a sign-in method. And what we need to do is we need to enable Google sign-in. Mine's already enabled, but you'll need to click on this edit box. You'll need to click this enable button. Then you'll need to click save. And now your app is allowed to do Google sign-in. So that was an important thing to do. And so what we're going to do on this side is we're going to say Firebase .auth auth provider, I believe is the thing we want, .google. It says I have no idea what auth provider is. I actually thought that was going to work. I thought that you could say Firebase/app and it would come in just fine, but I guess I had to say Firebase.auth. A little confused why that was necessary. I thought that this line right here would have made it to where I could use Firebase.app, but it looks like something didn't work right. Maybe it'll work for you as they update things, but right now I had to type /auth to get that auto import, which is fine. And then I also need a sign out. There's only one method of sign in this app, and it's sign in with Google. But we'll just go ahead and say sign in with Google, and then sign out will just be generic because it should really be the same thing, and that is .auth.signout. Cool. So there we've got a sign in and a sign out method. Nobody calls them yet, so it's kind of hard to test. But in theory, it should print these logs when you sign in and sign out, and it should successfully sign in and sign out when you call these service methods. Let's go ahead and call them. So we come over to our sign-in component. Our sign-in component used dependency injection to get the auth service. And the neat thing is we can actually, if we want, just call functions straight from the HTML. So we can say click, and click is just going to call the auth service sign in with Google. As with typing code into HTML, you always have to be really careful about typing code. But if we typed it all right, this should call on the AuthService object the sign in with Google method, and you should actually get a sign in. So when I come back over to mine, I actually got something that was kind of funny. It says that I'm currently signed in. So somehow or another, the last time I used localhost, I was signed in. Yours might do that too, depending on if you've ever done anything with Google sign in before on localhost. But it will probably say the other, which is that the user is signed out. When you click this button though, oh crud, it didn't work. I know why it didn't work. It's just a pain. And the reason it didn't work is because this auth provider thing, like doing this trick here, got it to compile for me, but it didn't actually make the whole thing work. And I looked up just really quick why. So I looked up and I found this page. It's because things changed since the last time I used it. So hey, thanks for that. So I'm kind of learning on the fly. So it is still app. So that part is unchanged. But now it is new Firebase auth Google provider. So I just think it's funny how quickly these things change. So like from the time I make notes to the time I try things, things change, which is great. So now it should be back up and running. Now I can click sign in with Google. And then I'll go to FisherDS, and it should say that I'm signed in as that person. Cool, so I'm signed in as FisherDS. By the way, I kind of went there and just kind of fixed it really quick, but I mean, the documentation is at AngularFire 2 docs. I was reminded that you should always make use of your documentation because things change rather rapidly, and the way you keep up to date with the changes is by looking at the documentation. So let's go and wire up sign out. Sign out is actually handled by the app component, so kind of the top level. So here's where they click, where do they click sign out at? Here's where they click sign out right here. So right now it just closes the toggle button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to just call a function on the auth service from here. I'm going to call sign out. So this was kind of a cheap thing here. So this area inside double quotes is valid JavaScript. In JavaScript, you can put more than one command. You just have to make sure you separate them by a semicolon. So you can say side nav toggle semicolon auth service sign out. To be honest, I should make a method. I should. I'm not gonna. So I do, however, need to use dependency injection into the app component though. So I can't call a method in my HTML unless my constructor here use dependency injection in a public way, right? So we're going to have the auth service, which is of type auth service. And the nice thing is, since it's a service, you can just use it, wherever you want to use it. That's what services are for. And so now I've got a mechanism for signing out, right? So it says you must be signed in to use this app, just because we haven't implemented anything there yet that says that you're signed in. But you can see that I am signed in. And if I click on sign out, then it says that I am signed out. So I can sign in. I can sign in as one of my other fake accounts. You can see I have too many Google accounts. And see here, you can see I signed in as someone different. I signed in as my daughter, McKinley Fisher. And if I click sign out, then down here you can see that I'm signed out. Great, so we've actually got a fully functional sign in and sign out. The only additional little thing I want to add is I want to kind of do some automatic routing whenever you sign in and sign out. We'll just kind of push people to different places. So when they sign out, I want to push people. So I'm going to navigate them. If I want to use the router, I have to use dependency injection. So I'm going to say private, because I think it can be private. Router : router. And then I have to auto import the router. It doesn't ever seem to want to pick the right spot for the router, so it's just going to be /router. And we're going to say navigate, and the thing you pass into this function is an array of the individual pieces you want to route to. And in this case, when they're signed out, we want to route them to the sign in component. So whenever you sign out, we want to push you over to sign in. And likewise, after they sign in, this is actually a thenable expression. So we're going to say .then. And our .then is going to get a fat arrow function. I'm on way too long of a line here, so I'm going to just kind of bring this around. Our fat arrow function, when you sign in, I believe it gets the user object. So we're just going to say user, which is of type Firebase .user. And here what we're going to do is a very similar thing. We're just going to sign them in, but take them to the naked domain. So after you sign in, we're going to push you over to the naked domain. When you sign out, I don't care where you signed out from, you're going to go to the sign in page. Again, this is something that some people, they choose to return the promise, and they let someone else who's not the service handle navigation. I like to keep my life simple, and I'm just putting it right in here and making it self-contained. If you have need to do it in a more complex way, by all means, do it in a slightly more complex way, but I don't currently have the need. So I'm going to say sign in with Google. So now I'm going to say Fisher DS. So once I sign in with Google, you can see it says that user is signed in as, and it says this, and it pushed me over to the naked domain, which is good. Now the thing I'm completely baffled by is, why am I still seeing this? That is not good. So I'm on the naked domain here, and I was still seeing some weirdness there. That was really awkward. Anybody else think that was weird? Now I sign out and I come over here and I'm going to try it again. So I'm going to say sign in. I'm signing in as me again, and then it brought me over to MainWorks. I really have no idea why this is showing up on here. I am sure that I've made a horrible mistake somewhere, but I don't currently know what it is, because there should only be one router outlet that is visible at any time. So I'm going to just pretend like I didn't see it, and then next time I will worry about trying to fix it. But I'm definitely kind of getting a little bit of weird behavior there on my main route whenever it sends me over. Cool. I think that I'm all set here, and I can check this in. If I go look at my diff, you can see that I've added a call to sign out. I've added dependency injection so that I can use the AuthService in the main component, in the app component. I've added my AuthService to my app so that I can use it in places. I'm calling sign in with Google, and then I'm using dependency injection in my sign-in component, and then I've actually made my AuthService. So this is a implement the AuthService with automatic routing. I won't bother mention the one kind of weird bug I had. I'm sure I'll fix it some other time. All right, that's what we've got this time. We will see you back next time when we do some more exciting stuff. See you then. Bye.